Hello, it's Woodru Senshi here, and it's been a while since I've uploaded to my YouTube, so sorry about that, but I thought this would be a good excuse, well, I have a good excuse now to upload a new YouTube video. It won't be usual stream highlights I've been doing lately, but yeah, the new season's coming up. Preseason patch is going to be coming out in just a few days from now, and I've been doing a lot of work and looking into the new items and how it's going to look for Yi, and I'm going to share that with you today in this video. I was going to make this my kind of basically preliminary guide. Of course, things can change as they change the items and as the meta continues to evolve. But I'm basically going to try and give you my thoughts on where I think he is going to be in the next season, season 11. Especially with regard to what items he's going to build and what his build paths are going to look like. And I do believe that there are a lot of different, there's a lot of versatility basically to the ways you can build Yi in season 11. So I made this big Google Doc, which I'll post a link to in the description below. But I'll start off by going over that a little bit, just kind of walk you through it. Of course, you can look through the doc on your own. It's pretty detailed, and there are still some things in there that might end up changing. It's being continually updated by me, but I'm going to kind of walk you through that, and then of course you can look at it as much as you want on your own time. And then after that, we can go into practice tool on PBE, and I can I guess kind of start to show you guys what those builds are going to look like. So here we go. This is the Google Doc. So just some quick things. There's a header here at the top of the Google Doc that shows like the conversion of haste to CDR. You might not know, but haste is a new stat that replaces cooldown reduction in Season 11. And it's a different kind of calculation. It's not a one-to-one. So now it's going to be 10 haste equals 9% CDR, and 60 haste is 38% CDR. So it's all there on the Google Doc if you need to reference it, but that's just kind of there for your reference, so you kind of know what's going on, I guess. So starting off here, the Mythics. So I'm assuming I hope that you can watch this video with a little bit of knowledge already about what's going to be changing in Season 11. If you don't, they have a lot of dev blogs that Riot's posted about what they're planning to do, the overarching themes. But if you're not familiar with Mythics, these are items that every champion can only have one of. You can't have multiple Mythics, but every champion will build one Mythic every game. It's kind of going to become like the core part of your build. And for Yi, I think there are several Mythics that have potential with him, and some that can be really good with him. But I do think that there is one that stands out among the rest as the clear best Mythic item for Yi, and that's this, Kraken Slayer. Basically, it gives you basically like a Vayne W passive where you do extra true damage every third auto. That true damage scales with the more AD that you have, and it's synergized very well with Rageblade as well. And the interaction with Rageblade is actually a little bit complicated. Basically, the idea is that when Phantom Hit goes off, it doesn't make Kraken Slayer proc twice, but rather what it does is it gives you if you have Phantom Hit go off and Kraken Slayer is ready at the same time, it'll make the Kraken Slayer proc go off, and then it'll give you another stack towards your next Kraken Slayer proc. So you would only need 2 more stacks after the Phantom Hit to get to the next Kraken Slayer proc. It's a little bit complicated. You might not understand what I just said, and that's okay. Basically, just take my word for that. Kraken Slayer and Rageblade do synergize well together, and you'll get a lot of Kraken Slayer procs off with Kraken Slayer and Rageblade together. The other Mythic items that I think have a lot of potential on Yi are Eclipse and Dustblade. These are both kind of like, well, they're both lethality assassin themed kind of items, and they won't really go with an on-hit Yi build. These are more for crit Yi or assassin lethality Yi, which by the way are way more viable this season than they were in Season 10. So that's an exciting thing. Eclipse is it's like such a balanced and overloaded Mythic item that honestly it's been nerfed already a lot since its first version, but I can see it getting nerfed a lot more. A lot of champions on PB seem to be abusing this, so no guarantee that it'll stay as strong as it is now, but basically what it does, gives you AD lethality, 10% Omnivamp. This is pretty important. It gives you Omnivamp, which is something Yi really likes because we want to be able to heal off of all the damage you're doing, including true damage, right? And you can proc its passive, its special passive effect multiple times in a fight, which is this. So 2 autos or abilities within 1.5 seconds deals not only 8% of the target's max HP, it also grants 30% movement speed and a shield that scales off your bonus AD. That lasts for 2 seconds. And you can proc this ability every 6 seconds. And that means you'll get another target, another 8% target's max HP damage, another 30% movement speed, another shield. It's just really strong. It's great for a crit Yi playstyle. I don't think it would go well with on hit, but this is still, I think, a great, yeah, basically it's a great mythic item for Yi. It's something you could very well rush, and it also just gives you so much. It just gives you so much of everything you'd want, basically. Duskblade is not like the old Duskblade it used to be. It gives you invisibility, as you may have heard about. 1.5 seconds of invisibility on a takedown. So this synergized with Death's Dance has a lot of potential to make Yi into basically like a Kha'Zix. This item was designed for reset assassins, and Yi is definitely one of those. And I can see it having a lot of potential. I played some games just today on stream with on PBE with this Dustplate build, and it really is a lot of fun, and it could have potential. Down here in B tier, I have some just more like niche mythic items that might have potential on Yi, but are very, I'd say they're not. They're very far from the consistent, reliable choice that you'd want to, build every game if you're seriously tryharding, or, basically these are extremely situational. But I'm not gonna say that they're sometimes they might be okay. That's all I'll say about it. You can read through these on your own. I'm not gonna go over them right now. Here's the stuff I want to really talk about. Here I think so I don't know if I said this before, but this doc is basically like a tier list of the items and why I think they're in the tiers that they belong, or in the tiers that I place them. And then I'm also going to talk about the item builds that I think Yi is going to have in Season 11. So the Esther legendary items, this is again only legendary items. So Mythics, we covered that up here. Here are the legendary items. Rageblade, of course, is very key, very core to Yi's build. It's still an S tier item, even though it's been changed a lot. I'm not going to go over all these changes again. That's something you can read on your own. But basically, Rageblade is still giving you Phantom Hit, but it's very cheap. It's 2,600 gold now. That's like cheaper than the jungle item that we were getting in Season 10. So Rageblade, I think now is, whenever you go on hit build, you rush this item, Rageblade. I think you should rush it, and it give you attack speed. You gives you physical on hit damage. It's not magic anymore, but still physical. It's still good for early game, and it does scale, as Rageblade of course does scale with its Phantom Hit, as well as this new amplifying physical damage on hit every time you get 20% critical strike chance. So overall, I think a great rush item. Phantom Dancer here is a completely different version from what Phantom Dancer used to be. Basically just gives you a ton of attack speed, and it's stacking. So it's kind of like Rageblade in a way, in that way, but yeah, basically just gives you tons of attack speed, like 80% attack speed when you fully stack it, as well as a ton of movement speed. So it's a great item overall for Yi. However, that said, while I think it is perfect for Yi in a lot of ways, it's also very easy to overcap the attack speed and not make full use of all the attack speed it's giving you. So you'll see when I get into the item builds, but it's something that tends to be, I think, more for crit builds. I don't think it ends up in a lot of on-hit builds, and you'll see why. But yeah, it ends up giving you 14% movement speed when you've stacked it, and that's 50 MS for you. That's a lot. You can replace boots with this. It's, yeah, a great item overall. Wit's End definitely is a worse version now than what it used to be, but it gives 30 AD now, which before it gave no AD. So with that said, it's still, I think, a pretty good item for Yi, even though it lost one of the things that made it so OP. But it's, even without that healing passive that Wit's End used to have, even without that now, Wit's End will still be a really good item for Yi. Ravenous Hydra also changed pretty significantly from what it used to be. Ravenous Hydra now gives you 15% Omnivamp. I think this is the new core sustain item that Yi wants. It's not going to be Death's Dance anymore. It's not going to be Wit's End anymore. Both those items got changed. Ravenous Hydra now is really the go-to item, I think, if you want to be the drain. If you want to play like a drain tank, where the kind of the way Yi is now, where you can heal up to damage and just tank everything and you don't die. You can 1v5 and just heal through all the damage they do with Wits and Death Stance. Ravenous Hydra, if you build this in Season 11, is going to kind of replicate that. Not completely, but it'll be similar, with this 15% Omnivamp. And it of course also has the Ravenous Hydra effect of doing the AoE splash damage to nearby enemies. I really do think this is the best sustained item for Yi, and we'll go into a lot of Yi's, especially his on-hit builds, because you want the Omnivamp healing for true damage. Sterex Gauge also has been changed into it's similar, but it's also just overall improved compared to the old Sterex Gauge. It could give you a really just massive shield. Like it does 200 shield base the shield is 200 base, but it can go up to 40% of your total HP extra healing on top of that 200, depending on how many enemies are around you. So if you buy Sterex Gauge and your team fighting a lot and you're surrounded by 5 enemies, you're going to get a 1k plus shield easily. And it lasts for 5 seconds. It doesn't decay like the Sterex currently does. So overall, and also not to mention it has healing. Whenever you take damage, there's a HP restore over 6 seconds effects that's implemented with it as well. So overall, it's just a really good item for Yi, and is probably Yi's best defensive option right now out of the current Season 11 items. I can see Sterex Gauge being built almost every single game. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Silvermere Dawn, this is basically like another QSS that they've added, but it gives you HP, 200 HP, which is really nice, as well as this. This is the key thing here. Silvermere Dawn gives you 40% tenacity for 3 seconds after you use the Quicksilver effect. So again, Silvermere is like Mercurial Scimitar, right? It gives you the QSS effect, but this one gives you a special 40% tenacity for 3 seconds after you use it. So when you get Silvermere Dawn, and you also have Tenacity Boots as well as Tenacity Runes, normally Tenacity Boots and Tenacity Runes give you 51% tenacity just to those, right? But when you use Silvermere Dawn, on top of all that tenacity, you'll get 80% tenacity for 3 seconds. So in a game, if you're in a game where there's a lot of CC and you want QSS, but there's still like a ton of CC that can follow up with you afterwards, you'll have 80% tenacity for 3 seconds when you use this, and CC is going to barely affect you at all, okay, with 80% tenacity, and that's usually enough to get your first kill or first reset, and then you win the fight after that. So this could be a huge game-changing thing for Yi that really is going to help him deal with all CC. And then GA, still an S tier item, just like it is now. Basically the same, nothing else to say there. Okay, so Bork. This is an item that I feel like a lot of people are talking about right now. They're not sure if it's good or bad. Even now, the current version of Bork, some people think it's really good, some people think it's really bad. I think Bork is going to be an item that, after I've tested it in Practice Tool, and I haven't done actually much testing with Bork in actual games, but I've done a lot of testing in Practice Tool, and I feel pretty confident to say that Bork it's like overall a worse version of the current Bork, in my opinion. And I don't think it's an item that excels at anything particularly well. Compared to the other items that you could build in Season 11, I don't see you building Bork very often. That said, I still put it in A tier because it still gives Yi everything he wants. It's still good in that regard. It gives you AD, gives you attack speed, gives you lifesteal, current HP on hit, it gives you movement speed stealing, a little bit of magic damage too. It's just a great, well-rounded item, but that doesn't mean it's going to be something you build very often. I would probably not build Bork very often personally, but we'll see. Maybe that'll change. Death Stance is now basically a purely anti-AD item. It only gives you armor, and it only negates damage from physical damage. Now, that said, I think Death Stance it's I think much more of an, honestly, it's borderline a niche item. I put it in A tier because I still think, basically, I think it still is something still a good item, but you just need to be careful about when you choose to buy it. It should only be when the enemy has a decent amount of AD damage and you're not buying it to negate magic damage. It also synergizes very well with Duskblade, as I mentioned before. Okay, moving on here. Mortal Reminder, it's basically just a way to get 6% Grievous Wounds. As you may have heard of, they're making this change in the upcoming season where Grievous Wounds is going to be buffed. So that's something for us Yi mains to probably not look forward to, because we're going to rely on healing but if you, at least this is something Yi can take advantage of in his build if you want to integrate Grievous Wounds into your build. Before we'd have to buy Executioner's Calling or have Ignite or something, but those were not, I think especially having Executioner's Calling in your build was really awkward for Yi. So now you can get late game, you can buy Mortal Reminder, because it also gives you movement speed. You could sell your boots and get Mortal Reminder, and you'll have your 6% Grievous Wounds against champs that heal a ton. And if you don't take Ignite, this is even more important for you. Dead Man's Plate also is something you could sell boots for because it gives you 5% movement speed, as well as 60 MS when it's stacked. So overall, pretty much just an item you sell boots for, in my opinion, or replace boots with. Yeah, Randuin's Omen also pretty much, it's like a little bit different. It can also not only reduces crit damage, but just reduces enemies' AD flat out. Only when you use the active though. I'll let you read through that. Randuin's Omen is, for the most part, it fills the same role. Spirit Visage, basically the same. Avoided Quickblade, you may have heard of this. This is basically a new Shojin, new Spirit of Shojin, where it only works with crits though. This is very important for you to know. You never, the way Rageblade works, I should mention this. The way Rageblade works is even though it scales off of critical strike chance, it makes critical strike chance makes Rageblade do more damage. However, you cannot crit when you own Rageblade. That means that any items that rely on actual critical strikes do not synergize well with Rageblade at all, and you shouldn't get them. So Navori Quickblade, the way it works is that whenever you crit, it lowers the cooldowns of your basic abilities by 20%. This is kind of similar to how Spirit of Shojin worked, right? But it's a little bit, it's at the same time a little bit different. So if you're not critting, you're not making use of the Navori Quickblade passive. And so if you buy Rageblade and Quickblade together, you will never crit because Rageblade makes it so that you can't crit. It gives you extra damage based on crit chance you have, but you can't crit. And that means if you can't crit with Rageblade, you can't ever lower your cooldowns with Quickblade. So just something you should know. IE is the same thing, right? IE boosts your crit damage, but if you never crit, you're not making use of IE. So you never buy these critical strike items with Rageblade, even though Rageblade does scale with critical strike chance items. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, not that said, IE and Quickblade are going to be great options for crit E builds, strictly crit E builds, nothing with Rageblade involved. Yeah. And then Bloodthirster, they added some critical strike chance to it. Pretty much the same. Yomu's is pretty much the same. No, excuse me. Here's more B tier items that I think are, yeah, stuff that we're just not going to build very often, but I want to include it because I think it's something that you still should build in certain situations, possibly. And yeah, what that is Titanic Hydra. This is an item that, it was something that I think had a lot of potential in Season 10, but the way they've changed it now makes it much more of a niche pick. It basically, I'll let you read about it. I mean, I just don't think it's as good of a defensive option as something like Sterak's or Randuin's. So that's all I'll say about that. Mercurial Scimitar, this is just the same QSS item that we had, you know, all these years. I think Mercurial, the reason I put it in B tier is because you would rarely buy that instead of Silvermere Dawn, in my opinion, because this Silvermere item gives you the QSS effect, but also 40% tenacity for 3 seconds after you use it. That's just way better to me, in my mind, than Mercurial, which gives you Quicksilver plus 50% movement speed for 1 second. So this is giving you movement speed for 1 second after you use it. It is 50%, it's a lot, but I just feel like it was almost always way better to have that 40% tenacity with your Quicksilver instead of the extra movement speed for 1 second. That's why I put it in B tier. You might disagree, and that also, like I said, it doesn't mean Mercurial is always the worst choice, but most of the time I think Silver Weave is better. Serpent's Fang is something that you would buy only if you really need. It's an anti-shield item. It does extra damage to shields. So this is only an item you would buy if the enemy team has a lot of shields, and even then, you might not need it. You might not want it. Zanya is also something that I think could find its way into Yi's builds. It's such a cheap item, and it's, yeah, I think it's just an item that, you know, there was a period where Castle was building it a lot, and I don't think it's, I think it does actually have a place in Yi's build in very niche situations when you really want to use the stopwatch effect multiple times in a fight, or multiple times throughout the game. Black Cleaver's been changed a lot. It's honestly, I think, a lot worse than what it used to be. It's really only useful for the HP you get from it, 300 HP, which is not that much. There are other items that give you better defensive stats. And it's mainly designed to shred hyper tanks, but Yi doesn't really need that, you know. You can shred tanks to your true damage and just having lots of attack speed and lots of AD to make your true damage shred through tanks. That's all you really need. Black Cleaver, you're almost never going to build this, in my opinion. Collector is a lethality item that lets you snowball by executing low HP enemies, kind of like Elder Drake, but it's less than 5% HP, not Elder Drake's 20%. It gives you a little bit extra gold on kill as well. Again, a very early game snowball aggression kind of item that you only build in very rare situations where you want to snowball and you're building lethality, right? So very niche. Essence Reaver, pretty much just for crit, although it can be good with crit. LDR, again, just when you're building an AD build where you need the armor pen, because otherwise Yi's true damage with on hit makes it so that you don't need armor pen, you're doing true damage, so you don't build LDR with on hit, obviously. Gargoyles Stoneplate is something that actually, probably the least, it's the one that could even go in A tier potentially. I think it actually has a lot of potential, but it is, I'm still not entirely sure about it. So basically, I'm just putting it in here tentatively with B tier. But basically, it gives you armor and MR, and as well as this active that gives you a shield. It gives you a shield based off your bonus HP, the decays over 2.5 seconds. What you could do with gargoyles now, and also it doesn't reduce your damage anymore, like the current gargoyles does. So gargoyles, you can stack it with Sterax and get a massive shield, and basically make it impossible to be bursted. If you get Sterax and Stoneplate together, you can't get one shot. It's like almost impossible if you use them together. That's what I've theory crafted. I haven't done so much testing again, like I said. I haven't done a ton of testing on PvE. I've done some, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm not 100% sure of. It's just stuff that I've thought about it, and I've thought about it a lot. And I feel confident in saying that gargoyles could be something that E builds, especially combined with Strax. Edge of Night, same thing. So I don't even know how to say this. Sorelda's Grudge. This is, yeah, something that is also, I think, extremely niche, and maybe you would build it with crit, for example, but not necessarily core at all, or something you build very often. Doran's Blade also, I just threw this in there because it has a change now where it gets 2.5% Omnivamp. It doesn't give 3% lifesteal anymore, it's Omnivamp now. So imagine you buy some Doran's Blades early game, and you get an extra 5% Omnivamp by getting 2 Doran's Blades, right? I feel like that's actually something that's kind of underrated and could be something that Yi mains could abuse in the upcoming season. Alright, so all that said, I've already been talking for 22 minutes. Just going to try and keep this video not too long. Here is the actual build paths that I think make the most sense. So I think the basic on-hit hyper carry build is one I recommend. It's going to be the one most consistent if you're not trying to switch it up that much. I don't think you can ever go wrong building this way. I think you can run Conqueror. At least the Conqueror also got nerfed if you're not aware. It does 9% healing now, which is less than what it currently does. So I think Conqueror isn't necessarily the absolute best choice. Lethal Tempo might have some potential. I also don't think you take Alacrity anymore. I have some calculations here towards the bottom of the doc that show attack speed calculations and what overcapping attack speed takes. You can read that through that on your own, but basically when you go Kraken on hit builds, I don't think you want to take Alacrity. You almost definitely want Tenacity or Bloodline. Most likely Tenacity. Tenacity is a good bet if you're not sure what else to buy or what else to take. And you take Ravis Hunter, of course. So the core is Rageblade into Kraken into Wits. This is again a very consistent, reliable playstyle that you could probably just, if you really don't want to think about it, this is the best build to just mindlessly go every game if you're not someone who likes to think about items you buy. You rush Rageblade, a cheap item that gives you Phantom Hit and attack speed. It's kind of like Blood Razor, right? And then you get Kraken. Once you hit Kraken Rageblade Power Spike, that's a huge power spike. You become very strong. And when you get your Wits, that also increases your DPS by the most compared to any other third item you can buy. I've done the testing. There's no other item after these two items, Kraken and Rageblade. Wits is the item that increases your DPS by the most. So it's definitely the best choice in most games, the vast majority of them. It also gives you move speed as well as magic resist on top of that. So this is just overall a great, well-rounded 3 item core build. That said, I do think it's sometimes necessary to replace Wisp with situational items. For example, an early Sterax if you're kind of behind and you need survivability, or maybe you need the QSS for a Malzahar on the enemy team, or Skarner, or maybe you just want an early GA. These are options, but Wits, when you don't want to think about it, is a great third item almost every single time. Also, one thing that I thought about is that you don't necessarily have to rush Rageblade right into Kraken. You could get Rageblade and then buy Sterax second item if you really need it. Again, Sterax is a really OP defensive item that if you're behind in a game could be better than getting Kraken second item, because if you're getting CC'd and bursted to death, Kraken's not going to do much for you. You're just going to die. So sometimes Sterax might be a better second item choice than going this usual Rageblade Kraken Wits build. Late game, Ravenous Hydra is a really fantastic sustain item like I've been talking about before. I think it's pretty much core to E's build now, and you really want to try and get this whenever you can. It basically doubles the sustain you have and makes you a drain tank like the way Yi is now. Like I said, you can also get Silver Mirror before against heavy CC. Sterax is just always a great option whenever you need survivability. Randuin's against lots of AD or crit champions in GA, just pretty much it's like you very rarely, I think, shouldn't get GA some point in your build. Situationally, you can get Gargoyles, Visage, PD, DD, Morals, Moral Reminder. PD, Moral Reminder, and Deadman's could all potentially replace Boots late game. Anyway, here's some example full builds. I don't need to go over all of them, but I will mention that I think the standard conservative, I guess the standard Yi build will be Rageblade Kraken Wits into Sterax GA. Just because it's like pretty, I think it's just it's like probably the most balanced build you can have. Where you still do tons of damage, but you also have some really great defensive items in your build. That said, if you're the kind of Yi main that loves to hard carry, or you're just in that mode where you feel like you can hard carry a game, this glass cannon build is also very, even though it's glass cannon, replacing Sterax with the Hydra makes you heal a ton, makes you into a drain tank, and you can be pseudo tanky with this glass cannon build, depending on if they have grievous wounds or not. But this is honestly a great option as well for hard carrying your games. And then these are some other builds that also you might end up building sometime. I'll just let you go through it on your own. Okay, Crit Yi, Eclipse. This is the exciting one. I think the most exciting build, honestly. Even though it's not the one I'll probably go every single game, I still think this build has so much potential. It's really exciting. The damage you get with this crit build is insane. It's just actually nuts. It's you'll have to see it for yourself. But basically, what you do, you run Hail of Blades with this, by the way. Hail of Blades or potentially Fleet Footwork. I haven't actually tested Fleet Footwork that much, but I do think Hail of Blades is most likely better. And you also don't need boots with this build because you get a lot of movement speed from Eclipse and PD. So you rush these two items first, and you'll have a lot of mobility. You don't need boots. I don't think you need to buy boots at all. Maybe you can get a tier 1 boots at some point in the game and sell them later, but that's up to you. I don't think you really need it. And yeah, after Eclipse and PD, you get your Quickblade, which is basically Spirit Shojin, right? It lets you reset your basic ability cooldowns with critical strike basic attacks. And then at this point, you're already so strong, and you're resetting your cooldowns on your Q, W, and E very fast because you already have 40% crit with these two items, and your critting is going to reset your abilities. After that, you get IE, and you're already just doing that much more damage, and also with extra critical strike chance, resetting your abilities that much faster. And late game, what I feel like is the ideal build is to get Essence Reaver into LDR. These two items after, as your 5th and 6th items, make you just do unbelievable amounts of damage. And I'll show you what that looks like. But yeah, ER, if you're not familiar with how they changed it, it's basically like a Spellblade item that makes you do... The Spellblade does extra damage based on your AD, your bonus AD, I believe. Or a combination of your total AD and bonus AD, something like that. You can read it. It's in the doc. And also restores mana, which is helpful because you spend a lot of mana in this build because of Quickblade. Quickblade makes you use your Q and W a lot more often, right? And your mana pool is not huge on Yi. So having ER is nice to keep your mana up as well. And then LDR, of course, just because a crit build, you need armor penetration because you're going to stack armor against you. And even though Yi does true damage, when you build crit, the true damage is not enough to get through tanks or get through people that have a lot of armor. And yeah, another thing I can mention here is that this crit build could potentially work with Duskblade as well. I think it's better with Eclipse, but Dustblade is, I think, an option. The better Duskblade build, I think, if you are deciding to build Duskblade, you're for sure going to build it. I think the better way to play that playstyle is this way, Assassin Dustblade, where you have a PD rush. You'll rush PD because it gives you a ton of attack speed. It's just like a great rush item in general. And afterwards you get Duskblade and Death Dance. The reason, I've mentioned this a lot, the reason these two items work so well together is because Duskblade, as I mentioned before, gives you 1.5 seconds of invisibility every time you reset it with a takedown. And every time you reset, you also get this bonus damage with the attacks, this 99% slow. That also gets reset. So you can use the Duskblade passive multiple times to resets, as well as invisibility for 1.5 seconds multiple times. Death Dance is also a reset item now, where the way it works is whenever you get a takedown, you reset whatever amount of damage you're bleeding for currently. So say you take like 1,000 true damage or 1,000 physical damage, and you're bleeding for 35% of that. You know, you're bleeding for 350 physical damage, but then you get a reset. Instead of that 350 physical damage finishing to bleed on you, it just goes away. It's like you negated all that 350 physical damage, it just goes away. And then you also get a 30% movement speed boost for 2 seconds and heal 10% of your total HP. So imagine this with Duskblade. The way it works is every time you get a reset, you get 1.5 seconds of invisibility, as well as this Death Dance 10% total healing and 30% movement speed for 2 seconds, which helps you reposition while you're invisible in the Duskblade passive. And then you reappear and use your Duskblade damage again. So overall, it just works really well. These two combo very nicely together. So yeah, not much else to say about this. You can get an early collector. This is an item for early game snowballing. I mentioned it before. You could also get some of these items, Edge of Night and GA, LDR, ER, Silvermere, a lot of stuff we talked about already. Some other lethality items that I think Situation could be good with this build. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think you're going to build Duskblade that often. I think these two builds, the Eclipse crit build and the Kraken on-hit build, are generally much better and more consistent. That doesn't mean that Duskblade is not something that has some merit though. So yeah, with that said, I think we can just go ahead and jump right into a practice tool lobby, and I'll show you what these builds look like. So to start off, I'll show you the on-hit Yi playstyle. So this is the one where we go Kraken, we rush Rageblade and then we build Kraken, and then let's see, let me pull it up again. Then we go Wits, and then most likely, you know, Hydra or Sterax into GA. So I'll show you this one first. These are all things, if you have a PB account, you can test on your own, but I just thought I'd throw them in here at the end of the video just to quickly show you. Alright. By the way, with this on-hit build, I do think you should max E at level 6. So what you'll do is you'll get 3 points in Q, you'll hit level 6, you'll get your R, and then at level 7 you take a point in E instead of maxing your Q. You take points in E until you max it at level 10. And yeah, I think that just works better with this on-hit playstyle. So you'll rush Rageblade, and after that you'll get Kraken, which is where, let's see, here it is. So with this, you're already doing a lot of damage. So I don't know if you can tell, it might be a little bit hard for you to notice, but I'm proccing the Kraken true damage there more often than once every 3 hits. Not just because of Rageblade's phantom hit effects, but also because of my double strike. So sometimes I can proc the kraken on hit, true damage that it does, like right after the previous auto that procced it. It's like back to back, and that's because of the way Phantom Dancer and the Double Striker interacted with each other. So then the finish build, like I was saying, go Wit's End here into, again, you could go Sterax GA. You also have boots here, so Sterax GA. This is, I think, a very standard, safe E build you can go. However, if you're someone that really likes to hard carry, I think instead of Sterax, you could go Ravenous Hydra. This is kind of like, you know, more of like a, I guess like a wet dream kind of build where it's like, if you build this, you're gonna just feel so strong. But it's also kind of like, it's a little bit of a disrespectful build if the enemy team has any outplay tools or any reliable CC or any, you know, good burst damage like a Kha'Zix or a Veigar or something. You might not be able to get Ravenous Hydra, but I'll just show you what you can heal for, basically. So I'll take some damage here. I stacked my Ravenous Hunter, by the way. So here's what I heal for. So I heal a lot. This is, I think, way more of like a drain tank E than the current E is. You just heal for so much. So I think I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I actually think you heal more with Season 11 Yi than you did in Season 10 with the old Wit's End and Death Dance and all that. Conqueror got nerfed, but Ravenous Hunter got buffed, and this Ravenous Hydra is so good. So yeah, that's what that looks like. You really heal for a ton. Even if they have 6% grievous wounds on you, you'll still probably heal for a ton. If not for that, you can get Sterax, you know, and I mean, that's pretty much all there is to show you for on-hit Yi. Let me go ahead and switch and just show you the crit version. This will be the last one I show you, and then I'll call it good for this video. Sorry for 36 minutes. But I do want to just show you what this crit build with Eclipse and the Quickblade and the IE and ER and LDR and all that looks like. It's actually pretty crazy. I couldn't really believe it when I tested it out myself. But yeah, I guess the only problem with it is it's pretty lacking in. It's kind of lacking in defense. You know, you're not I don't know if you may or may not be familiar with a Yi main named Silence, who was like a crit Yi. He would only play Master Yi with crit, and he was pretty well known for having a special build. This build is similar to that kind of a build where it's like almost exclusively damage focused, and the only defense you get is maybe like the Bloodthirster shield that the Silence build would have, or the QSS that Silent build would have. This build is similar to that, except probably even more vulnerable. But anyway, here's the runes that you'll take with it. Something like this. And then you'll take Flash. And I'll show you what it looks like. This current version of this crit build with Eclipse and all that stuff, the damage it does is insane, but yeah, like I said, it doesn't have necessarily the most potent defensive options. The only defense you really get is Eclipse's healing. It heals you right when it has Omnivamp. Eclipse also gives you the shield. So I'll just go ahead and show you what that looks like. Alright. Don't need all that. So with this build, you definitely max Q. It's a crit E build, and crit E builds you always want to max Q, which is also just what most E mains do, regardless of what they build. Most E mains just max Q. So okay, you'll rush Eclipse, and then you'll go into PD, and then at this point, you're already pretty strong. I'll show you what you. Oh, whoops, that's the wrong. That's the wrong dummy. What I do? Let me just put those over here. Okay. So here, I'll just show you what this looks like. So that's with Hail Blades. Again, I think this build works really well with Hail Blades. Right there, I did 900 damage, quick succession, to this dummy. I think the dummy doesn't have any armor, but it's just a pretty nice burst of damage considering that it's only 2 items. And then the next thing you get, which is these Quick Blades, you start to reset your auto attacks very quickly. I'll show you. Or sorry, you reset your Q ability very quick. So, I mean, I don't know if that was actually a good example. Let me try and show you again. So oh, what happened to that one? Okay, so I'll do this. So my Q is already off cooldown again. You see that? Another thing about this crit build is it gives you a lot of ability haste, which is, as you know, it's like cooldown reduction. So this, I already have essentially 23% cooldown reduction, and then with Navori Quickblades, resetting my auto attack cooldowns, or sorry, resetting my basic ability cooldowns, I can basically just Q, and I just do one rotation of autos, which is auto, 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 into a double strike, into a W reset auto attack. Let's see. I think that is 6 auto attacks total, and my Q already comes off cooldown. So I can use my Q again, and so I Q and then do 6 auto attacks, and I can Q again. So that's just with, like, I don't even have that much crit chance yet. I only have, like, what, 40%, right? So it's not that much yet. So then once you get the IE, once you get the IE, the ER, and LDR, yeah, this is where you start to become just insane. It's really ridiculous how much damage you do. So at this point in the game, when I have all these items, I'd be level 16, you know, at least probably. I also have enough movement speed, only in combat. See, when I'm in combat, I had like 486 movement speed. That's a lot. My items are giving me plenty of movement speed there. I'll just show you how much damage this does by spawning Baron here. Okay, well actually I'll show you first with Hail Blades how quickly you can how quickly you can explode people. So watch this. Okay, you see that? I did 3 crits and each one was like, it was like 1200 damage and then like 2 800 damage crits. Like, it's insane amount of damage you do. See, I did 5,000 damage to this dummy. Again, it has no armor, but like you know, you also have LDR with this build. You're going to be getting a lot of armor anyways. So, and I also tested this with targets with armor. I won't show that to you right now, but I've tested with targets with armor, and you still can, like, basically one-shot them. Even if it's, like, a tank with 200, 300 armor, you really get close to one-shotting them. And I did, like, 5,000 damage to that with a Q and 3 Hailblades autos. So I'll show you this on Baron. I'll just show you the amount of damage I do. And also how quickly I reset my abilities. See, look, it's almost dead. It's almost dead. You see how quickly that was? How quickly that happened? Granted, the Baron it's early in the game, so the Baron is, like, it's not that tanky compared to what it'd be as it scales later in the game. But it's still, yeah, I still did a ton of damage to that Baron. I was almost, like, 3-shotting it. So, that's all I wanted to show you for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed the doc that I made. Definitely let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. You can also you can reach out to me on Twitter or Discord. I definitely would love to hear if you have any kind of feedback or thoughts about things I missed or maybe things I didn't consider, or if you have different ideas about what Yee's build is going to look like. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later.